crowns. It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown. Let's go. I'm just telling you to fight for your dreams, but it's not what it seems. Man, it's hard to be seen when everybody wants to be king. Yeah, they all want to ring. Yeah, we all want to be free.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in at a 1 p.m. time. I did have it scheduled for 4 p.m. With that said, when I scheduled this stream yesterday, I totally forgot that it's my kid's birthday today. I mean, I knew it was my kid's birthday, but we're celebrating. We're going to the movies. And so I had to get it on here before we go to the movies because I think she would kick my butt. My kid is now 11 years old today. So I figure I'd do this right now. And I got my guy Dan said he's about to get on. He says he can't get on the Twitter feed. So I have to send him on a Facebook feed. Oh, my God. So we're going to have Dan come on here in a minute, and we're going to talk some Detroit Lions. But everybody, let me know how you guys are doing today. Hopefully everything is good as we talk Detroit Lions. We're getting a free agency. A lot to talk about here with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell speaking yesterday. A lot to unfold there, and we're going to discuss that. We're going to do some Q&A. You know, what are the options Lions left in free agency? What does it mean for the NFL draft that's taken place? A lot of fun stuff. Tiring Tuesdays. I feel you, bro. I feel you. What's going on, Dan?
You know, hey, how you doing, Mike? Just jumping in here late, so apologize.
You're just like a period, man. Sometime is late. What's up, Mike? Can you see Facebook comments today? Yes, I can. I can definitely see the Facebook comments right there. And again, I appreciate everybody coming on a little bit early. Again, my kid, I'm taking her to the movies for her birthday. Then we're going to have a birthday celebration. So that's what's all out. Woo! Listening at work. Hey, Turner. What's up, Mike? I love seeing the Facebook. How are you doing, Dan? How are you doing, man?
You know, it's been a busy day, Mike, but hoping to finish it out well and then get ready to go on a little bit of a vacation for a few days.
I know. I'm looking to. I'm hoping Friday there's some storms here in West Michigan, but Saturday may go up to the cabin just to enjoy getting out of the house. So for sure, John Wick 4, I seen that comment section. Great movie. Loved it. Freaking absolutely love John Wick. Anthony, if you want to jump in, you can. It's in the Twitter feed. That's all on you, though. Did you watch, Dan, the Brad Holmes interview?
Yes, I did.
What is your thoughts on that?
You know, I'm going to say this, Mike. I think he's not really trying to tip his hand on anything we're going to do in the draft or the remainder of the year. So we'll see what shakes out. I know there's growing speculation, not necessarily through him, but through other media sources. The Lions have actually been speaking with Baltimore. I hope that's not the case, or if it is, I hope we're not giving up much.
Baltimore for what?
Lamar Jackson. So there was.
Where did you hear this at? Because I have not heard a single thing on that.
There's a couple of reports that came out this morning. None of it's firm, but I know ESPN ran a bit on it where they're talking about the Lions may be one of the 5 teams in some form of negotiations with Baltimore for Lamar Jackson. It's just, I don't think anybody foresees that the Lions are going to give up 2 firsts to get him, but there was some speculation that Jared Goff at number 18 could be a possibility.
Someone says never actually answered the question. I have no idea what question you're talking about. I don't see that happening at all. I give that a 0% chance at this point. So if you listen to Dan Campbell, what he said last night is, Jared Goff's the guy. We love Jared Goff. And that just seems like the route they're going, and I'm fine with that. So what, I think that's the case. I really don't think the Lamar Jackson is anything realistic here. I would have to hear it from some major source. I just don't see it happening. I honestly don't. What else did you take away from the press conference or interview that Brad Holmes did yesterday?
Well, let me say this first about it. Let's assume that the speculation, whether ESPN's on target with it or not, to me, it's a brilliant move by Brad Holmes. If it's showing before the draft that the Lions are still considering going after a quarterback, what's that do for your potential number 6 and number 18 picks? If people now believe that one of the quarterbacks slides down to number 6, does that force a quarterback needy team to have to pay a little bit more to come up and get it at 6? So I'm with you. I'm sure most of us watching don't really believe the Lions are going to go after Lamar or any other quarterback, but it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the other NFL teams think. And right now, there are 26 teams behind Detroit. Some of them need a quarterback. If number 6, let's just say, AR-15 falls there, or Stroud, or, whoever, how much more do you have to pay to come up and get them if you think that Detroit actually might take them?
You have to pay up. You absolutely got to pay up. Look, if we're trading back, for a team like the Tennessee Titans, I think that'd be a realistic trade scenario there. You got Jeffrey Simmons, who is having issues there right now with the Tennessee Titans. If the Lions are trade back, maybe that could be part of the deal there. But I want a haul. If I'm moving from 6 to 11, I want a haul. I want a big haul. I want a first round pick, maybe next year's first round pick. I want some lovely stuff with it to help this team out. What was your thoughts on Brad Holmes when he talked about the wide receiver position? He didn't seem like it was too big of a need after DJ Chark left.
No, I agree with him. And the other part is sort of like we're talking with Lamar. I don't think he's going to try to reveal anything that tips somebody off. He said he was in the interview. He pretty much said he was happy with what we've done in free agency. He did kind of allude to losing Chark, but like you just said, he wasn't really put out by it. I think if I'm Chark, if you're going to analyze him, why come back to Detroit when I think it's a telltale sign both DJ and the organization feel Williams is ready to basically take his spot on the field. The other part, Williams is probably going to get a lot of reps. He's going to get a lot of throws, and you already know St. Brown is there getting the lion's share of throws and targets his way. So if I'm DJ, I took a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal, hoping that the following season I'm going to get something more. If I'm Brad Holmes, Shark's a loss, but is he huge? No. I think Josh Reynolds is going to fill in. And the other part, I don't think Brad Holmes wants anybody to have any clue what we are going to do in the draft.
Yeah, I think that's the best. And I think the Lions don't want anyone to know what they're doing in the draft. I think that's what's great about Brad Holmes. The guy is a poker face for sure. And I concur with him. Look, you can find wide receivers all in the draft, round 1 through round 6. We got Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. You can always find some guys. And I do think it's still a strength of our team. I do think it's a loss that you lose DJ Chark, what he brought. But if you're a good drafter or a person that understands prospects, you can find a replacement, get that big body wide receiver in the draft where you want to get it. So look, I think we'll be fine offensively. Still want to get one of those big body receivers, but it could be any part of the draft, round 1 through round 6. It doesn't really matter. I agree that it's not the biggest need. I think defensive tackle is probably the biggest need for me. We got Bald John Wick in the building. What is going on, Bald John Wick?
Doing good, Mike. Doing good, Dan. How you doing?
Good. How about you, man?
Sorry, I just got your message. I've just walked in from work and I'm like, oh, he's gone straight live now.
Yeah. I had to. My kid's birthday. I was like, oh man, I better do this early. Did you watch the Brad Holmes press conference, Anthony, over Lions UK?
I've been watching bits. I'm going to watch the full thing after, but I've seen the vast majority of it now. Just a little bit left to watch, but it was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, very, very. What was your takeaway from there?
I mean, he obviously seems very happy with the business that he's done. I know quarterback, he seemed a little bit disappointed. Maybe that's the one area they've not landed on. But, I mean, I don't know. He's still keeping his cards close to the chest. He's like, well, we can do pretty much what we want now. So it's kind of, well, great, thanks for that. We've got absolutely no idea. But he's right. It's a good thing. We're in a very fluid situation now. We've filled a lot of holes, and I think we can kind of afford to just go after the best guys possible in the draft now, keep adding talent, and then, just any gaps left after that, go fill them up. Seems like, yeah. So yeah, I'm quite happy. He sounded a lot happier as well. I think it's first year he's been able to kind of splurge a little bit and do this, because the last 2 years have been a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, I'm encouraged.
What I really like what Brad Holmes was saying and how he is done with this football team and the draft picks is good teams. When you're really good and you got a good roster, you could pretty much go any player in the draft because they're solidified at all these positions. We're used to Detroit having to fill needs. Giant hole, giant hole, giant hole, giant hole. Now we're getting to the point, doesn't really need to be that way. It's like, you know what? Like the Philadelphia Eagles did last year. They went and get a player that they don't really play a whole lot, last year, but they'll be used this year. But they're just going to go ahead and draft BPA and let that play out. And I think that's the Lions' philosophy here. Great job in free agency, getting Gardner Johnson, getting players that will help this defensive backfield, big giant hole there. And we still got $23 million in cap space. That is third best in the NFL. They could still make a move between now and the draft or at the draft with a player like Jeffrey Simmons, a defensive tackle from the Tennessee Titans, if that's a route they wanted to go there, Ant-Man. So what do you look at when you see this cap space? We got money. There's still players out there. Do you think that there's a move with Brad Holmes? He's got an ace in his hand.
I think now we're about a month from the draft, aren't we? I think he'll have done a lot of his business now. I think next you go into the draft and see who you can get. Because I mean, if all the stuff with Carter works out, I know he's coming for a visit with the Lions. They're going to do the due diligence on him as they always do. If he drops in the draft and you get him, then you kind of need a defensive tackle vanishes a little bit. So I think he's done his business for now. I think he'll then add the talent through the draft. And then once the draft is over, I think then we'll see some more moves to fill out the roster. If there's any holes we can't fill, I think he'll chase them afterwards. And I feel like that's how he's going to go. I could very well be wrong, but I kind of feel like that's the vibe I'm getting now.
Bobo's 100% right. I gotta give credit to Brad Holmes. The guy's a politician. He says a lot, but there's nothing given out, really. He's absolutely stunning in that fashion, and that's what you want to have as a GM, is a guy that says a lot but says nothing. What do you think about Jalen Carter? He's got a pre-draft visit here, Dan, with the Detroit Lions. Didn't say specifically what date, but he'll be coming in, talking to the Lions management. He's the most controversial player right now in the NFL draft. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the Lions could take him, or do you think they pass?
No, I think, while we all agree Brad Holmes didn't say a whole lot in his interview, to me, he said enough to not rule out Jalen Carter. I mean, Holmes goes on to talk about in his interview that, there are things he did in college he doesn't want anybody to, know about, that, this is a 21-year-old kid. So while he doesn't say a ton about him, he does seem to be a little bit apologetic for what has happened to Jalen Carter in the last month or whatever. He doesn't expressly rule it out. He doesn't convey any kind of, this is not a character guy for us. But the fact that he refers to himself, Brad Holmes, and say, hey, when I was at that age, I made mistakes. And now we do know that Carter's coming in. I think Carter's definitely in play for us. And I think if the Lions can do nothing to tip off the top 5 teams that they are considering him, or somebody right behind, I just see that favoring us. And I think if he's at 6, we're taking him.
Ant-Man, Carter, what is your thoughts on this? Again, I don't even think, look, we could talk about the vehicle issue all you want, but I think more worrisome is the pro day. He couldn't finish the drills, 9 pounds heavier, but he is an elite talent. I can't stress it enough. He did killer work there in Georgia.
So the thing for me is, when you come into draft season, there's always a pushback on guys who are very popular. I mean, remember in January, February, everyone was all about Devon Witherspoon. The hype was there. And then there has to be, I don't know why, but people feel they have to make a counter movement to it and try and put them down and try and devalue them. It's happening with Carter at this moment in time. And I get the stuff that's happened with him, at Georgia and the stuff that went on there, but a lot of that just turned out to be rubbish. And now I've seen people attacking his performance in the playoffs. I mean, if you actually go back and look at it, there's only one defensive tackle in history in college football who has had a higher pressure rate over 2 college playoff games before than he did. I know he didn't get all this fancy sacks and that, but he was still goddamn effective. And I just feel like there's a real big counter movement that's been made on a lot of falsehoods and lies about him. And I don't like that with any player. It's the same with a lot in the draft. You just get pushback on popular players. So if he comes in, if he interviews well, if they like him and, there's a rational explanation for everything that's gone on, then I think they should take him. And I would have no issues with us taking him. I mean, everyone's forgotten about Micah Parsons' trouble, haven't they? Remember 2 years ago, all the pushback on him? Oh, we don't want Parsons, locker room cancer, all this sort and the other. Everyone's forgotten about that now. Why? Because he's a good player. They've forgotten about it. But
we haven't forgot about him because he dissed our city. But
you know what I mean, though.
He's a
lot of people have forgotten about the whole problems he had beforehand because he's come in the league and so far he's been, exemplary in terms of. I know he's a bit of a dick, but he's managed himself well on and off the field. So if they think he has no issues, if they think they're explainable, then I have no issue with them taking him whatsoever. And like I said, I just think a lot of the stuff been said about him is for the sake of it because he's popular. So, yeah.
Folks, if you're on Facebook, smash that thumbs up. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button. Let's get to 50 likes, and let's at least get to 1 thumbs up because right now I ain't seeing any. That does help it out for sure. Dan Campbell, he talked about Jared Goff. Dan, very much with Jared Goff. Like, he loves Jared Goff. And then Brad Holmes did say, though, he talked to Jared Goff the end of last year that we need to fill that quarterback room and get it better behind you. What's your thoughts on that, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes on Jared Goff?
If I'm either one of them, I'm going to make Jared Goff feel like he's the number one player in all the NFL. I mean, why wouldn't you? That's your quarterback. That's your leader of your team. You need them to believe that they are unapproachable, that there's nothing you're going to do to replace them. Until you do. But for right now, let's just analyze the backup quarterback spot. Nobody wants Nate Sutfield to get in there and decide the games. Or
You're screwed.
Yeah. So do I think they need to address the backup spot? Yes. Do I think they're going to do it in the draft? Also, yes. But right now, you're not going to do anything to put Jared Goff in the kind of mental duress or stress to where he's doubting himself or his future here. So make him feel like he's the number one choice at all times.
What do you think about that, Prescott? Did you see the Dan Campbell thing, Anthony, first? You did see it on what Brad Holmes said about Jared Goff. What's your thoughts on that and the future plans for QB position?
I love how they've backed him, and I have since the beginning. Whatever you think about Jared Goff, whatever you say about him, he has earned the right for this year.
Yep.
First year, he wasn't great. The second year, he proved people wrong. He proved that he could be a guy who could help us win football games. He went through such a great period. Even against teams like the Bills, sliced and diced them up. He has earned the right to be our starter. If you turn round and betray him now and say, we're getting another guy, you undermine the entire ethos of what this rebuild is about, which is hard work, reward, respect between both sides. You've seen it with the players who are taking pay cuts. You've seen it. The players respect the team respect the players. Why? Because they have this attitude. If you earn it, you get rewarded. And Jared Goff has earned his third year for those. So for them to come out and say, he is our guy, he has performed really well, they 100% should be doing that. Anything other than that is a complete and utter betrayal of their principles. And you can't do that. Because with Detroit, you've got to build something. You've got to give players a reason to want to come here. The culture is it. And if you start undermining your culture, then it's done. Now, I did find it interesting how they said they've been in touch with Jared Goff and they've let him know their plans. That to me sounded ominous, as though they're like, right, you are our number one, but there may be a guy who we're going to come in and we're going to sit him and he's not going to challenge you for now, but he might be a threat to you in later years. I did take that away from it, but as for backing him for being 100% starter now, absolutely. He's a confidence guy. You put 100% confidence into him, he'll give 100% confident play back to you. So that's what you got to do.
Yeah, you've seen his confidence over there in LA was destroyed. I mean, that guy was just decimated over there.
And look around the league. You know, Zach Wilson, they've discarded him. They're done with him. And he just looks... I know he might not be good, but... You can tell he's kind of like, my team don't believe in me anymore. He feels like Goff when he left LA. You've got to treat your quarterback with respect. Look what the Ravens are doing with Lamar. And he's a top-tier talent. And they're just saying, we don't really want you. treat your team with respect, especially your quarterback, and they're doing exactly how they should be.
Yeah, they definitely, like, if they wanted to make Zach Wilson a little bit better, what they got to do is go to the local Cougar Club, and I think that would make him a little bit better over there for sure. But yeah, no doubt, man. I always believe support your players for sure. Don't throw them under the bus, even if even if you're kind of lying a bit. Don't do that. It's never a good thing at all. So that's what we got there. So let's talk about the NFL draft. And in 10 minutes, we're going to go to you guys for you to ask us any question you want to ask, whether it be Dan or myself or Ant-Man, also known as Bald John Wick. You just do hashtag Lions, hashtag whatever, and then I can see it. Hashtag villain. You could do that too. Then we will get into it. Ant-Man, now, so many mock drafts have come out. So many different scenarios come out. I just seen one from Ryan Wilson. It has Lucas Van Ness going 6. I think that's way high. Way, way, way high there. What do you think legitimately is on the table at pick 6? Or do you trade up or down? What, not what you would do, but what do you think actually occurs?
So I think the way Holmes has been talking about how we can go one of many ways in the draft, it would not surprise me if a trade up was now in his thinking, because maybe we don't need to land all 5 of these top 50 picks, top 80 picks to make our team better, because we've gone out and got real good guys in free agency. So I think the plan, honestly, if Carter is doing well and teams are just going to devalue him and move him down, I think they would go mad for him. I think they would go mad if Will Anderson's there. Take one of the 2 blue chip defensive prospects in this draft. If a quarterback falls, I'm sure the quarterback scenario is there as well. If the two defensive players go first, the quarterback's going to drop to you. What do you do there? I think defensive tackle will be priority 1. I think maybe quarterback, if the right scenario evolves, because we need Richardson or Levis. You want a guy who you're going to develop, and if neither of them are going to fall to you, then you're not going to take Stroud or Bryce. And then after that, I think it'll be looking at trades maybe around that. That's how I feel. But Van Ness has never started a college game before. There is a reason for that. You do not take a guy at 6 who has never started a game at collegiate level. Thank you.
By the way, someone says we're echoing here. I've only seen that from your account, so maybe it has something to do with you. The other Facebook users are fine, and everybody else on YouTube. So maybe there's some sort of setting there that's having that happen. What do you think, Dan? Pick 6. What legitimate, not what Dan would do, not what would the fan base do, what I would do or Bald John Wick would do. What do you think actually occurs with that selection at 6? Move up, move down, take a pick. If you're going to take a pick, who is it?
Well, right off the bat, I'm going to say let's rule out moving up, just because it doesn't seem to be in Brad Holmes' nature to move up. Now, last year we did to number 12, but if you look at the amount of picks we gave up versus what we received, we just swapped positions, so we didn't lose the number of picks. I believe if we're going to have to move up, it's going to have to be to 3 in order to get somebody, and I just don't see us being able to pay enough to move up to get one of the elite defensive players, either Anderson Jr. or Carter. So if one of them falls, I'm taking Carter over Anderson by a mile. After that, boy, I think you're going to have to go defense with maybe Gonzalez or maybe offensive line with Johnson Jr. One of those 3, I believe, would be the option.
For me, this is the most difficult draft, pick 6, that I've done recently. I've been on YouTube for 4 years. I've been perfect except for the trade up with Jamison Williams. I got Swift. I got everybody. Okay, even in the second round, multiple rounds. This draft, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to get it right. I have no idea. It is extremely difficult to read Brad Holmes. But the closest idea I think it is, the closest I think is we're not going to be sitting at pick 6. I think we either trade up for a Will Anderson or trade back for a team. I just don't believe they stay at that selection. Why is that? Because you could take multiple people at 6. And you heard Brad Holmes talk about, he said last year, in the year before, he had 7 or 8 people they liked at this time. Like, we had 7, 8 people he liked. Yesterday when he talked, he says, we're not at that point yet, and he just laughed about it. I think the reason why is there's so many different scenarios. Like, all the people you want could be gone by 6. Right. And if you're sitting there, there's it's a little bit of a drop off unless you're taking a Jalen Carter who's got personality issues or red flags. So to me, I think you trade up and you go for a Will Anderson, or you trade back with a team like the Titans. That is my best that I'm coming for. In the comment section, let me know your thoughts. What about pick 18, Ant-Man? I think it's a little easier at pick 18, in all honesty. What do you think they do there? Stay, go, select.
I think it's even worse at 18. Because there's so many things you could do there. What are you going to do? Are you going to, you're going to go running back? You're going to get someone to pair with Monty? You're going to take the guard there at this point? Are the corners going to drop? I mean, I think ideal scenario is one of the good corners drops to us at that point. And, if teams are going to stretch on some of these offensive line players, maybe not that good, then maybe it happens. So I think 18, it all depends on what happens at 6. It depends on what hole you fill. If Carter falls and you take him at 6, then that's kind of big need gone. Then you can kind of just take the best player who's available at the time. But yeah, I need to see what happens first. I think, if Arizona shed that third pick and trade that, then we get one of the defensive guys. So I think we'll stay there, and then, you just work from there. But 18, I don't know. There's so many players I kind of like, but I would like us to be a bit lower. Unless it's a corner, I think we're stretching for a lot of other players there. I think it's a very awkward position to be. That'd be the pick I'd like to trade back a little bit for me.
We got a $4.99 super chat from my guy Steve here. Says, bringing a veteran like Calais Campbell with Carter might be a good situation to teach how to be a pro. Thoughts? So, Dan, they just in this scenario, they get Calais Campbell. Do you think he could be a good veteran presence for a Jalen Carter if they drafted him, someone to mentor?
100%. I mean, he's the ultimate pro. I mean, he's someone who shows up every day to work. He shows up in games. It's just, let's face it, he's also getting near the end of his career. So if you're going to sign him to a 1-year deal, make him understand, hey, you're going to get a couple reps here and there, but your job is more or less to be a coach on the field. Not only do I think he'd help impact Carter, but also think of other people like Houston or Pascal or heck, even Hutchinson. All those guys would be able to learn from one of the greatest defensive linemen of the last 10 years. So having them out there, yelling, screaming, reinforcing some things, showing them little tips here and there, it's only going to help out multiple players.
Yeah, I concur. And Steve, thank you so much for that super chat. I concur. When you get a veteran, that's what their job is, to mentor. Yeah, they're still going to produce on the field, but they've done it already for years. They kind of understand how the game works, understand how you got to work hard. Like Calais Campbell's a great player throughout his whole tenure, and to be great, you have to go to the next level, and that's exactly what he did. So if you could get something like that, I think that would be good. The problem is, for me, it's like you can have all the veterans, but it's not when you're at work. It's when you're not at work. It's when you're on your off time. Like Kyler Murray plays video games, apparently. When he's not at work, all he does is play video games. It's like, what do you do for someone like that off the field? How do you have a plan scheduled for somebody to get those distractions away? Because when you're young, man, distractions are coming when you're a millionaire. Young millionaire, I know I would be. Shoot, I was having distractions when I was poor as a mug. So when I was young, it's just the way that it works there. Dan, at pick 18, what do you think the Lions do at that selection?
To me, Robinson, Ryan Breezy, or the one I really want them to do if he's there would be Osiris Torres. I just think, OT's he's the future of that offensive line, and you put him in there next to Penei Sewell, I just think nobody's getting in on that right side, and that right side is going to open up some major holes. But, you're probably pushing a little bit at 18 to get OT. The rest of them, though, I think would be solid fits.
Sean Cap says, you want you guys playing video games or at the club? Well, it just depends, just like anything. You take things that's sporadic. If you go nutso into a video game, you become like a World of Warcraft, spending 18 hours on a video game. I think that's a little bit overdoing it. So it's pretty much just anything. But it is what it is right there. Who's your ideal backup? By the way, let me know in the comment section. It's time for you guys to ask questions. Put hashtag Lions, hashtag bald John Wick, whatever you want to do. I'm going to miss your questions, so just repost it. Again, we will miss it. There's 188 and 191 altogether in here. So it is a lot of people. Who's your ideal backup quarterback in the draft? Oh, there's plenty of quarterbacks you can get in the backup role. I like Jake Haener if you're just going for a young developmental guy. I do like him. I like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. The problem with him is, will his name fit on his jersey? Just so freaking long, but I think he would be a good guy. If you want to go a little bit sooner, I think Hendon Hooker could be a great quarterback. He was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in football. I think a little bit over 70% last year. He would probably be QB3 if he didn't get injured. I think he would probably be above Will Levis, in all honesty, QB4, above Will Levis, just under Anthony Richardson because of Richardson's high ceilings. But what about you, Ant-Man? What would be your situation there for a QB behind Jared Goff in the draft?
As I've said, the amount of guys they're talking to and the pro days are going to indicate for me that it's going to be a day 3 guy or a undrafted free agent guy. And the guy I've always wanted there is Lindsey Scott Jr. So I'm not changing my mind. He's the guy I want to be quarterback 3 and develop him over time.
All right, no problem there. Dan, you got to go here in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
Would you take Trenton Simpson at 48?
Probably not. I'm probably looking at other places in that location.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in there, man. Me and Ant-Man will run the show. Appreciate you coming in there, Dan.
No problem. You all have a good one, and we'll see you when I get back.
All right.
See you now.
What's up with Karen? Hashtag FGB. Karen's always Karen. Karen's going to always be Karen. That's what he does. The guy just wants to be a center of attention. I'm missing questions left and right, so just keep posting it there. Trade pick 6 and a 3rd next year to the Titans for 11. Simmons and 2nd next year. What do you think of that one, Ant-Man?
Yeah, I'd do that, but I don't think the Titans would, to be fair. I mean, they're getting, 5 places up in the... Unless Jalen Carter's there and you're doing it there, but I'd do it, but I don't think they would.
Steve says, hashtag Lions, does Quentin Johnston make anyone else's Lions fandom walls jiggle? Look, I think that if you're to get Quentin, it's hard for me when you said that comment. I think he'd be great in that Chark role, a guy who's got that big body and he's fast. You'd probably have to get him at 18. I think that would be amazing offense. If you're going to go that route, the offense would be amazing. What quarterback did Anthony mention? Mike Kimber. What quarterback did you mention, Ant-Man?
Lindsey Scott Jr. He's the quarterback from Incarnate Ward.
Okay. John Kapler says, hashtag Bugger Mike. Clark Brooks in the 3rd trade back. What do you think of 6'4", 300 and athletic for a size inside of the outside? What do you think about Clark Brooks there, Ant-Man? I don't know.
I love Carl Brooks. He's the edge from Bowling Green, but he's going to move interior at the next level. He's going to be like a pass rushing 3 tech. He's a really good player, and I really like him. But he's not top of my list. I prefer Keanu Benton on the inside, but if we drafted him, I would have no issues with that. He's going to be a really good player. So, but I wouldn't trade up for him. Was it trade up for him? I wouldn't trade up for him. But if he's there, I'd take him.
Ooh, Happy Dan. Lions, if Carter is there at 6, but Eagles offer you 10 and 30, would you do it? Word is their dream is to reunite Davis and Carter. I would do that. I absolutely would jump on that right there. You would have 3 first-round picks. You would have 10, 18, and 30. I would jump on that in a heartbeat. Happy Dan, if Brad Holmes did that, I'm going to call him the GOAT. That would be amazing because I think you can still get the same person at 10 that you could at 6, and you're picking up another first-round pick. Oh, my God, I would love that one. What do you think about that, Ant-Man, trading back and getting another first-rounder?
I'd say no, purely because we have gotten to the position we have by not trading down picks, but taking damn good players. We stayed and took Penny. We probably could have traded that Penny pick for a haul, but we didn't. We could have traded the Aiden pick for a haul, but we didn't. We get our good players. For me, Jalen Carter's worth more. If there's no issues with him and the Lions brass decide he is the player, he is one of the best players, if not the best player in this draft. I am going to take him, even for want of another first-round pick, because that's how we're getting so good. We're taking blue-chip prospects, not passing up for extra picks.
And see, that's where the fan base is split. You have the people that would take him. Look, I like Jalen Carter. I do have questions. Could it be Nick Fairley 2.0 because of the workout? But I'm gonna let Brad Holmes decide that. He's gonna be close in there. But if you think like he's not the guy, I would do it. If you think, look, Brad Holmes thinks this guy is gonna be the greatest pick, I guess for sure. But I'm all about trade. I do like trading back. I definitely like trading back. But not just for anybody. I mean, that's just my thoughts. That's different. Lions fan, go ahead.
If he's going to be Nick Fairley, I know he's kind of rag on him a bit, but since he left, there is no one we've had at the defensive tackle position since then that I would have preferred over him. So I would take a Nick Fairley right now, if I'm being completely honest.
Man, I want to take Nick Fairley after what happened with him. Justin Chase, Big Arms Chase. See, he's more like the my side there. We're all a little bit different here. That's fan base is split 50-50. But picking up an extra first would be nice. 3 first, man. Then you have 2 seconds. Oh my God. You could probably take, if you want to even go even closer up in the draft, you're like, know what? We're going to pick 10 and we're going to take 18 and we're going to take a second round pick. We're going to move up to 14. Like you could have so many situations there. It would be amazing. It would be amazing. If Carter is their guy, no deal. But if we bring in Campbell to mentor him, it would be a great situation for defensive line. Yeah, that's for sure. If that's what they're thinking, for sure. Don't really know now. You know, this is a lot of silent, but if that's their thought process, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I do trust Brad Holmes in his evaluation of talent. I will take his word and his selections over mine because he's close to the players. He's been right. He knows what he's doing. He's been great in the draft. I trust his draft process and how he selects. So either even if it happens to Ant-Man that they get players I personally didn't like, I full on trust that Brad Holmes knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. At this point, you know, I like doing my draft analysis because I have my favorite players. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he's the expert and knows actually what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, as soon as they are drafted, they're a Detroit Lion, they're my player. I'm going to support them. So they could take like the worst. They could take the 8 players I hate the most in this draft of the positions, and I wouldn't care because I trust them. So.
Steve O'Fairley wasn't as bad as Mike is making out to be. He just wasn't a player they expected him to be. Well, he was injured quite a bit, had issues with eating. Then we find that medical issue when he went to New Orleans Saints. So I would have went a different route. But that, you know, it is what it is. That's a hindsight 2020 there. Nobody's talking about Tuli Tuipulotu 2. I can never say that guy's name.
Tuipulotu.
From USC, kid is a dog. Talk about Tuli, Ant-Man.
Yeah, he's one of the players who's kind of got lost in this draft. I mean, again, I sort of have my own personal favorites at edge. He's not there, but he is a very good player. But he's probably going to go on day 2, something like that. He's not really one I've looked at as most as some of the other guys out there, so I can't really add a lot more. But he's had a really damn good year, I know that much. He's been like the only good defender USC have had. So, hey.
Anyone with the biggest long name that's hard to say that's who the Lions draft. That's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. Levi Onwuzurike, I remember we got that one. Amani Owarie, we get that one. It's like, oh my God, man. If you're going for the hard names, that is Brad Holmes. That and some players that have a high ceiling. Alex Haggerty, #Lions. What's more likely? We trade back in the first from 18 to late first, or trade out of third to get the 4th round picks? What do you think is more likely? Trade back into the first from 18. Well, 18 is the first. Are you talking about going 6, 18, and then coming?
No, he's talking about going from 18 to like 24 or something and picking up more picks.
Oh, okay.
Like, is it trading pick 18? Or do you trade the 3rd round pick? I mean, what's Brad Holmes got? What's his history of trading apart from up? I mean, usually he trades down later in the draft to acquire picks.
Trade up early. So, that's what he does.
I mean, yeah, I would, in that scenario, I would envision that he would. I think we'd more likely trade pick 81 back for some mid-round picks
Yeah.
than any of the others. I think they go quite heavy early on and pick mostly where they're going to pick. I think 81, 81's more likely to get traded than 18, in my opinion.
Yeah, you get like another 4th round pick. I could see that because we don't got one right now, so that's possible. But they do trade up early for sure. They tried to trade up for Penei, so almost did it. I mean, that's just what they did, and they almost picked Levi in the 1st round when you heard about, and Joshua Pascal. So, yeah, I think going though from 3 and picking up picking a 4th round pick would be logical for sure. #Mike, do you think JMO has over 1,000 yards this season? Ooh, great question. I'm going to say no, just because there's a ton of talent on this offense. It's going to be difficult. What is your thoughts on that one, man?
If we're talking all-purpose yards, then yes, because I think they will use him a lot out the backfield, jet sweeps, all that sort of stuff. So I agree with you. There are a lot of mouths to feed in this offense, but he can get yards more than just being a receiver. So I think he will. I mean, it took Amon-Ra half a year to get good, and JMO's had, half a year to get good. So you should start. I think he'll start pretty quickly because teams still don't really know how to deal with him because they haven't seen that much. He's going to be fully healthy, ready to go. I think he's going to take people by storm at the start of this season before maybe tailing off a little bit as they figure it out. But I think he will get 1,000 yards all told.
Can Holmes find 2 starters in the 1st round? What positions? I think for sure he can get one defensive tackle, whether they go at 6 or 18. I think that would be a starter. I don't know about another starter. I think you'd get playing time, but straight starter, it's going to be difficult because we're very talented all over this team. I mean, if they wanted to go a wide receiver or a running back, playing time or a guard, I think it's possible. If they found a defensive back that plays really well, it's going to be difficult because there's so much talent on this football team right now. But DT for sure would be a starter. And don't even talk about tight end. I'm not even going there. And, man, what's your thoughts? Can you find 2 starters in round 1? Do you think they do?
I mean, I don't think they need to.
Yeah.
I know that sounds a silly thing, but, I mean, this is the year they said that's better than any. If you want a quarterback, you can just pick him and stash him and let him develop. I mean, that's a case there. If there's an offensive lineman they really like, I keep saying this, we're in a bit of an awkward position with the offensive line because in the next 2 years, they're all going to be getting paid heavy amounts of money. At some point, you've got to start investing in it again. And maybe you take a guy, I know first you would probably want him to start, but you also want some elite talent to replace some of the guys you're going to need to when all these contracts come up. So, I mean, he could find 2 starters, absolutely. But I don't know if they will, because I think there will be one eye on the future as well. And as I say, there are positions, quarterback, offensive line, where you can get great players and you not have to start them right away. And wouldn't be wrong. You've always got to think about your future.
David says any player drafted around 1, most teams would be projected of starters. Okay, I concur. But this is a situation where we got a ton of starters right now. So if you look at the offensive line, okay, that's pretty much set. Maybe they could go like an Osiris Torrance, but the offensive line is set. The quarterback is set. The wide receivers, generally it's just 2. So if you were to draft a wide receiver, say at 18, he's not going to be ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams right off rip. He would be a guy that's somewhat of a player. Tight end, we're not drafting a tight end, I don't believe at all, in the 1st round at all. So you go to the defensive line. Defensive tackle for sure would be a starter. But if you go edge, is he going to be a for sure starter right off there? You got Aiden Hutchinson, you got Romeo, you got Charles Harris, you got Joshua Pascal. There's a ton of bodies there. He may be in a rotation, but a straight starter, difficult. They're not going to take a linebacker. Well, I guess you could take a linebacker right at 18 and be a starter, but they're generally they do 2 linebackers at one time. And right now you have everyone's favorite Alex Anzalone, and got Malcolm Rodriguez in there. So they could get a linebacker in theory at pick 18. I don't think they do it because that's Brad Holmes. You go with the defensive backs, who's going to start immediately, because you got Emmanuel Mosley, Jerry Jacobs, you got Gardner Johnson, you got Sutton, and you got Okuda. So if you're to draft a defensive back, where is he going to be? And for safety, you got Tracy Walker and Kirby Joseph. So it's really difficult to find a guy that's a starter all the time. It really is, unless you go running back like a Bijan Robinson, who would probably get majority of the carries, but there is not that many besides defensive tackle.
Exactly. And like you've said, cornerback, linebacker, safety, there's not a lot of young talent on those teams. I mean, at linebacker, you've got Rodrigo, who's like the outstanding talent. Barnes, we don't know with yet. And then after that, it's just glorified special teamers. At corner, I mean, I'm going to call Jeff a young talent. Now, I know I still fully back him, and I believe it's his year, but you've got no talent coming through the pipeline at safety. You've got Kirby. Tracy's a fully fledged vet now, and, then you've just got Kirby. So you've got to keep on replenishing your young talent. And, if it means, even if it's a first, if they're a very talented player, but they're not going to start right away, but in a year they're going to be a big part of your team, then absolutely, that's what you do. You've got to keep building sustainably for the future. It's not all about just finding starter after starter after starter after starter all the time. It's about finding the most talented player, and it will take time for him to develop. Every player takes a different amount of time to develop. So as long as they're good in the long run, that's fine. I mean, look at Bob Quinn's drafts. I mean, 2017, we thought, Tracy Walker's in there, Deshaun Hand's in there. All these guys are so talented year one, and then just fell off a cliff. They ended up in no good. First they might look good. They're all starting. They're all playing well, but things don't always work out that way. Yeah, exactly. Things don't work out that way. So I just want them, between the 5 picks in the top 81, to draft 5 very talented players.
Yeah,
that's where they're at, whether they are starter, development, whatever. 5 very talented players. The amount of young talent we have on this team and the direction we're going, that's great for this franchise going forward. So just pick me some really good players, regardless of whether they're a starter now or in 12 months. I don't care.
Steve says, #lines, I'm not sold they wouldn't consider tight end 18. They filled so many holes, I wouldn't count it out. I'm counting it out. I think I'll lose my mind if we take a tight end this early, considering the fact that our tight end room is good with what we have. I will be live on Lions Nation Unite. We'll have Herman Moore and everybody, and I will do this. We draft a tight end at 18. I will lose it because there's so many other positions I think you can get that's more effective than a tight end. Do you think they possibly take a tight end at 18? Or are you like me, like, man, there's just no way?
All I'll say is this is the most talented tight end class in a very long time, maybe ever. But in terms of what we need, is there the right guy in there? I think outside of maybe Darnell Washington right now, the guys who can block really well, I mean, then no. I mean, I love guys like Kincaid and Musgrove and that, but they're receivers. They're flashy picks and they're guilty pleasures in that way. And we kind of don't need one of those because we just had one of those. So I don't think they're going to do it. I think Brad's going to surprise us. I think he is going to go trenches again. I think maybe 3 of the top 5 picks will be trenches, either one side or the other. So that doesn't really leave a lot of room for luxury picks outside of that, because say we need more linebackers, we need more corners, young guys. So I don't think so, no, unless the value's there. If one of them slips, one of these really good guys, he's still there late in the second, I think they would pull the trigger on it. But I think it would have to be a situation where someone slides and the value becomes too much for them to pass up on.
Yeah, man, I don't know, man. I tell you, God dang, I'm just tired of the tight ends, man. It's like we're always getting every tight end. It's like, come on, please. Happy Dan says, #Lions, have you watched A.T. Perry, the big wide receiver? He is. He could be a good size value wide receiver. Still on the board at 81. Red zone threat off the bat. It looks like he has talent to develop into more. He's big. Yeah, I have. I was asked, I think it was a week and a half ago, and then I finally decided to look at it, and I said, woo, this is a big guy for sure. That could be a developmental player, no doubt. What do you think about A.T. Big O Perry, man?
So Ryan, one of the guys I pod with over here, he watches Wake Forest all the time. He really likes A.T. Perry as an outside receiver threat. And, we need one this year. So, I trust his judgment with him. He is the potential to be a very good player at the next level. I have my own preferences, but again, I wouldn't be upset with it. It's just I prefer other guys in that role. But if we got him, I'd be quite happy with it.
John Kapler, hashtag Mark Mike. Can we draft players that are early round picks and they don't start this year, but start next year? Best future available. Yeah, you can. Look what the Philadelphia Eagles did. Clear example right there of they drafted just BPA, knowing that they're going to lose a billion free agents this year. You take the players that whom you drafted last year, you put them in starters, and you get freaking 5 million comp picks. That's what's going to happen with the Philadelphia Eagles. So look, I go BPA. I'm not going to draft this guy because we're strong at this position. Well, okay. So you're going to let a talent go just because we're strong right now. But next year, we only got 2 defensive backs on the field. What's our guard position over there like? Do we have Swift come back? There's so many other questions you got to think about. So just go BPA. Don't overthink it. Yeah, one corner. So don't overthink it. Just get talent, the best talent on this team. And guess what? There's going to be injuries. So what if you lose a Gardner Johnson and somehow they decided to take a cornerback at 18 and he plays slot as well as safety? Well, then you're not losing a big talent fall. Or you lose your guard and you took Osiris Torrance and Graham Glasgow and Big V went out. Well, then Osiris Torrance, insert him. So that's something you got to worry about as well is depth as well as the future of this team. Just go BPA. Don't be Bob Quinn and draft just for need, because then you lose talent, and then that's the result of this team being a freaking terrible 2 years ago with lack of talent on it. Anthony,
exactly, and I'd still double dip at corner now. Because, as I say, next year, you've got Cameron Sutton, then it's Iffy and Chase Lucas. They're the only guys you have at the corner position next year. Now, if you were to go out and say, at 18, one of the guys that's loved most over here, and I know a lot of places, Brian Branch, he plays exactly similar to how Gardner Johnson does. So why not draft him, let him learn from one of the best at that position? And, if Gardner Johnson does well, wants to stay, great. You've got 2 of them. But if not, you've secured your future. You've got your young guy who's highly talented, learning off one of the best at the position, and you've got him ready to go next season. Big hole filled that you don't need to do in 12 months. And then if you get another outside corner to work with Cam Sutton, it's depth and depth and depth, and you need it. So in 12 months, we don't want to be going, well, we've just won our first playoff game. We're doing really well. We're on a momentum. But guess what? We've no corners going into the draft, and we've got to redo our entire secondary all over again because, the guys have played really well and want too much money or that. So, you do have to keep looking forward. So I think that's what they'll do. I still do expect a couple of corners early doors. I do.
Yeah, look, man, and Brad Holmes talked about that. He talked about BPA. He stressed that in last night, and that's what I like about him. Just like in his first draft, he went 2 defensive tackles in a row. One didn't work out, and the other one's a stud. And it was the third round now as a stud. So just go BPA. Do it. Don't worry about it. Well, this guy's not going to start right away. Well, guess what? He's going to be a stud for this team for many years to come. It is something that we're not used to in Detroit because – let's be honest here. We've been terrible in the draft before Brad Holmes. This organization has been awful. And so we're always trying to get a need. There's always a need somewhere. It's like, dang it, there's a hole here, there's a hole here, there's a hole there. Now it's, holy cow, there's not that many holes. We got defensive tackle, there's a hole. Yeah, maybe wide receiver 5, a backup quarterback. Other than that, it's just like, you know what? Just go BPA. At that point, you lose a player next year in free agency, insert new player that you drafted last year. Just like we have Jamison Williams coming in this year, right? It's the same situation. They draft him last year. DJ Chark leaves. I love DJ Chark. I like what he did. But is wide receiver a major hole now? Nope. Jamison Williams comes in. All right, we can get a developmental wide receiver.
And look at what's happened at edge. I mean, last year you had Harris, who was coming off a great year. We had Romeo still under contract. He went and got Aiden. He went and got Josh Pascal. He went and got James Houston. 3 edges in one draft. And now he went out and got Kamish off waivers, another edge. And you're going into the season and you've got every single one of them. You've got 7 bona fide edge rush players who are going to be really good. And that's going to drive competition in this year. And at its worst, even if they all do really well next year, even if Romeo and Charles both leave, when the deals are up and they want to go elsewhere, you are left with Hutch, you're left with Pascal, you're left with Houston, you're left with Kamish. You know, you've had a great group this year, and all those 4 young guys you've had in have learned off the vets, and you've solidified your edge for the future. And people thought 3 edges last year was a bit extreme, but look what you've done. You've secured your future. So we need to start doing that with other positional groups now. We need to start drafting heavy on there, secure the future, even if you're going to bring in more vets and stuff. It's all about stability.
And Derek brings us up here, hashtag, should we consider offensive tackle early to replace Decker before we have to pay him through the nose? We got to pay Frank and Sewell. Can we afford a Decker's contract? And that's a situation right there. He's getting a little bit older too, Taylor Decker. So say their BPA is a tackle, then take it. I'm not going to sit there and get mad about it because it is hard to find a good left tackle or a good right tackle, right? You could throw Panay over to the left side in 2024, and if you draft a tackle now who could play guard, right, and play tackle, it's hard. You're finding teams. Look at the Chicago Bears. Their offensive line is cheeks. It's been cheeks. And, you know, get like a Skoronski, I see stop drilling there, who can play guard, who can probably right tackle right after the 2024 season if they want to move Panay over there. So I have no problem with it. I don't. If they did it, you're not going to see me cry. I won't cry.
And you're paying Jonah next year, and you're paying Panay the year after. Yeah. So who's our offensive line depth now? I know Glasgow's here, but that ain't long term.
Yeah, that's not long term.
Eze's somehow picked up an injury, which we didn't realize on the practice squad, which is apparently really bad. And he's the one guy we had sort of coming through the system ready to do so. Kramer's just coming off a serious back injury. Evan Brown is gone. So your depth is thin. And even if you get depth guys, you need your future starters. This is the time now when you have an elite O-line to start drafting your future starters. You're in the good for the now, but that can soon change. We don't have the next start. I mean, Frank's only 26, so I'm not too fussed about that. But if they don't want to pay Jonah, if they need a right guard, if they don't want to pay Taylor, or, you know, you've got to have your guys of the future ready to come through. You can't just wait until the hole appears and then fill it and throw them right in. It doesn't work that way. So, you know, that's what I think Brad Holmes means, is in with the unique position now where we can rebuild the O-line when it's already elite, because we've got all these top picks to use. Doesn't matter if we spend one on an offensive lineman that ain't going to start right away, because we're going to make things easier for ourselves 2 years down the line when they've all got to get paid. And we're going to be like, you know what? I'm damn glad he made that pick back then, because now we've got a contingency plan.
Yeah, my back's hurting, Philip. See, that's why I just did this, because if I have the green screen on, I got to sit closer to the camera. My back is hurting, so I'm doing this. And just like you're saying there, do you want to be I've been a Lions fan for a long time. I remember having Dominic Raiola as a center. Always complain about him. Jeff Backus, always pretty good over there. What are they doing on the right side? We've always had problems with the offensive line, and we've seen what it does to your quarterback. Bad, and we've seen like last year what it does to your quarterback in a good way when you have a good offensive line. So if they continue to get offensive line, I'm going to say, cool. Great. Like, I'm not going to be upset I want to have a beast offensive line and a beast defensive line. Folks, you win through the trenches, and that's hashtag facts. It's not pretty. It's ugly. You're not looking at great names that's catching the footballs, but you're getting the guys that protect the folks that run the football and sack quarterbacks. You do that, you're going to win in the NFL. The reason the Lions played so well offensively, yes, was Ben Johnson, but is also for the fact that offensive line was absolutely great in the run game and protecting Jared Goff and letting him do his reads.
And you've got one of the best O-line coaches in the league, so get them in now, learning whilst he's here, because he ain't going to be here forever. He's going to get a higher job eventually. Hank Fraley will. So load up, have them learning off the best, and just solidify yourself, because it can change in the blink of an eye. I mean, look at the corner room. It's terrible last year. It looks really good now, and it's potentially a really good future, but it can just as soon go the other way. Like I say, this time in 12 months, if we don't do anything at corner in this draft and it doesn't go how we want it to, we've got Cameron Sutton under contract and Chase Lucas and Ife Melifonwu. We don't know what's going on. It's like, oh, God, it's going to be year 4 of the build by then, and we've got to rebuild the entire cornerback room again. So always got to be on top of these things.
Jack Reeves from Facebook, why is there no word on defensive tackle Levan Uzurike? An update on Big V, Chark, and other ankle surgery. Guessing we're not going to take risk again. I'm going to tell you what I was told. This was about a month and a half ago, that he's probably going to at some point get released with a payment, because he's just not. It was a fusion. It's not looking good. They're not banking on him coming back. So
I thought Brad
that's
talked
the
about him.
What's that?
Didn't Brad talk about him saying he was?
I don't
nearly
think he
ready to
talked
go?
about Levi. He talked about Big V. He talked about Big V had he's looking promising. Didn't talk about
Okay.
Levi, but that's what I was told about a month and a half ago. And again, I don't expect him to take, if he is to ever take a snap for the Lions again, it would be an absolute shock to me. It would be a shock.
It's so upsetting. He could have been such a great player.
Yeah.
And it happens. So, like say that double dip on defensive tackle. I mean, I was certainly questioning it at the time, but now it's like, well, thank God he did, because Aleem was good. So we only need to spend one more pick now to fix it up. And we've got some good depth. So
yeah, I definitely know about the fuse. I got double neck fusion back here. And look, it's great for the pain. It does take the pain away. If you got a bad spine, go get a fusion. If it's bad where you can't fix it, because the pain will go away. You'll have, throbs here and there, but it's not pain. But when you fuse it, you're limited. Why? Because it's fused. That's why I can't go like this anymore. There you go. That's what it is. But we've been on for about an hour. Had a great time, Ant-Man. I appreciate you coming on. What do you got to say to the folks? Tell everybody about your great channel.
Yeah, you can find us at Roar of the Lions UK. We are a group of British Detroit Lions fans who talk about things from across the Atlantic. So if you want to come and get a different take on things, please come check us out. We're on the road to 1,000 subs, so it'd be great if we could get there. We're going to try and do it before the draft. But obviously, you're the G, Mike, just trying to be as good as you are. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to the draft. We're less than a month away now, and I've never had this much faith in the franchise and its GM before, and that's why I just can't wait for these events anymore. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to it so much.
For sure, man. Make sure you guys subscribe to Roar Lions UK. They do a fantastic job. Anytime, they generally go live when I'm working, and so I'll put them on here while I'm working and listening. I'll comment every once in a while, just let them know I am listening. I'm working, though, but it's great stuff. Check it out. Roar Lions UK. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on that channel. That's really important. So if you're one of the 240 that was in the chat and you're not subscribed to Roar Lions UK, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. With that said, we'll have videos dropping every single day. I'm going to get with Herm. Hopefully we'll have something by Friday. Maybe we'll get him on a little bit early. I don't know. I'll talk to him. We'll get that thing going. With that said, folks,
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me. And what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me. Take into your hands a plan. Your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the hours it takes to get some power. Don't be f***ing sour. Take a cold shower. Scream until you're louder. Work until you're prouder. And f*** all the doubters, they're just your downers. I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown. I'm off at these fucking clowns who were all taught they deserve an ounce. It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown.